Hi everyone, it's Peter Bull and I'm so glad you're here with me today. This is part one of a two-part little series on another one of my favorite Upanishads, the Mundaka Upanishad. I'm going to be reading today and commenting on the Upanishad from this edition here of the Upanishads from Nilgiri Press, 2007, second edition, in the wonderful Eknath Easwaran translation. I bet a lot of you already have this book if you've spent even a couple of minutes here on my YouTube channel and certainly in this playlist on the Upanishads. So let's get started. This is a Upanishad that explores, like all the Upanishads, Vedanta philosophy, Brahman, Atman, Maya, different modes of consciousness, our oneness with ultimate reality, all the universal themes that some of us are quite familiar with because we've lived with these texts our whole lives and immersed ourselves in their wonderful, non-dualistic worldview. So here we go. From infinite Godhead came forth Brahma, first among gods, from whom sprang the cosmos. Brahma gave the vision of the Godhead, the true source of wisdom that life demands, to his eldest son, Atharva, who gave it to Angi. In turn, Angi gave it to Satyavaha. In this tradition, Satyavaha gave it to Angiras. So a lovely little paying respects to the teacher-student dynamic of the Upanishads. The word Upanishad, again, means sittings near a teacher. So unlike the older Vedas, the Upanishads from roughly 3,000 years ago represent a kind of a shift in Hindu or Vedanta philosophy, focusing on the divinity within, not the divinity above. But you see here in the opening passage of the Mundaka Upanishad some very familiar kind of mythological frameworking of Brahma, the creator god of the Hindu Trimurti, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and Brahma is the personification of Brahman, who is the source of everything. So we put it in a personified God, and we tell the story that way for a minute. I love how Hinduism just seamlessly, playfully transitions back and forth between the dualism of bhakti yoga, or talking about the gods, and the non-dualism or monism of the deeper truth that all is one. And the gods are our personified, projected stories about how the one became the many. So a great householder named Shanaka once came to Angiras, this great teacher, and reverently asked, "What is that by knowing which all is known?" Wow, what a grammatically challenging sentence. What is that by knowing which all is known? Let me rephrase that, I think, in a maybe easier way for us. What is it that by knowing I then know everything? What is the one thing to come to understand, which if I did understand that, would unlock for me all knowledge and all wisdom? Angiras replied, "The illumined sages say knowledge is twofold, higher and lower. The study of the Vedas, linguistics, rituals, astronomy, and all the arts can be called lower knowledge. The higher is that which leads to self-realization." Okay, two modes of learning. What Nagarjuna, the Buddhist philosopher, calls ordinary knowledge, and then prajna or transcendent knowledge. We get that same bifurcation here. Human consciousness, it's myriad and complex, and it's helpful to talk about two modes of knowing: discursive conceptual knowledge and non-conceptual awareness. which leads to self-realization. There's that word self again. I have to put this footnote in every video. In English translation, the Sanskrit word Atman is translated as self, capital S, self. When I see self in the text, I'll say Atman, just to simplify this. But when a phrase like self-realization comes along, I have to say that as it is. Self-realization, then, is the goal of Vedanta, to realize that we are that the universal consciousness within us, the Atman, is inseverably unified with the one reality of Brahmanatman. To go back to the text about self-realization, higher knowledge. The eye cannot see it, mind cannot grasp it. The deathless Atman has neither caste nor race. Neither eyes, nor ears, nor hands, nor feet. Sages say this Atman is infinite in the great and in the small, everlasting and changeless, the source of life. Beautifully poetic language about the oneness of Brahmanatman showing up as all names and forms, all nama rupa. And that nice clarification there, the deathless Atman has neither caste nor race. Reminds me of that line in the Apostle Paul where he says, in the inner Christ, there is no male, no female, no Jew, no Gentile. In other words, on the surface, our sociological and ethnic and genetic specificity matters because it impacts how we move through the world and how others perceive us and so on. All the social structures around racism and sexism and the caste system. Those things don't just poof away because you got a spiritual practice now. Instead, we have our mind in both orientations. Yes, those things matter a lot in the world of name and form, but at an ultimate level, our essential nature is unbound by those categorizations. Is that the word I'm looking for? Back to the text. Beautiful image here. As the web issues out of the spider and is withdrawn, as plants sprout from the earth, as hair grows from the body, even so the sages say this universe springs from the deathless Atman, the source of life. The deathless Atman meditated upon himself and projected the universe as evolutionary energy. From this energy developed life, mind, the elements, and the world of karma, which is enchained by cause and effect. The deathless Atman sees all, knows all. From him springs Brahma, who embodies the process of evolution into name and form, by which the one appeared to be many. It's a delightful thing to read the Upanishads aloud and feel the poetry washing over you. This beautiful dance between oneness and multiplicity, and saying yes to all of it, and not feeling bound to have to pick a side, letting the oneness and the multiplicity exist simultaneously. Second section here. The rituals and the sacrifices described in the Vedas deal with lower knowledge. The sages ignored these rituals and went in search of higher knowledge. A classic passage. You're not going to read that point of view in the Vedas, are you? But you're going to get that point of view quite clearly in the Upanishads, that something has shifted in the project. And as Vedanta philosophy, which essentially means the philosophy of the Upanishads, begins to emerge and eclipse the earlier Vedic texts, you get this clarification that, sorry, not sorry, all the rituals and chants and prayers to this God and prayers to that God, that's a lot of busy work that feels great for, religious people at the level of ordinary knowledge. But now we have, we're not negating the value of that, but we're saying here's a new way of moving and breathing and having our being in the oneness that the gods merely represented to us. To go on, look at these rituals. When the fire is lit, pour butter into the fire in 2 spots, then place the offering between the 2. These oblations will take the worshiper on the sun's rays to the world of Brahma, where he can have his fill of enjoyment. Such rituals are unsafe rafts for crossing the sea of samsara, of birth and death. Doomed to shipwreck are those who try to cross the sea of samsara on those poor rafts. Ignorant of their ignorance, yet wise in their own esteem, these deluded men, proud of their vain learning, go round and round like the blind leading the blind. Living in darkness, immature, unaware of any higher good or goal, they fall again into the sea. But those who are pure in heart, who practice meditation and conquer their senses and passions, shall attain the immortal Atman, source of all light and source of all life. Action prompted by pleasure or profit cannot help anyone to cross the sea. To a student whose heart is full of love, who has conquered his senses and passions, the teacher will reveal the Lord of love. Here comes that beautiful phrase, the Lord of love. In so many of the Upanishads, the emphasis, as in this recent passage, is so clearly on the oneness beyond the multiplicity of gods and devotees. And then right when they get done making that point about the oneness, they throw in this beautifully specific personification, the Lord of love. And not only do they call it Lord, they give it a quality, the Lord of love. And they use that wonderful word of love to denote the wordless experience of oneness. So many times in Vedanta philosophy, we hear neti, 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 not this, not that, not this, as the Christian mystics in the Middle Ages used the Latin phrase via negativa. It's the same thing. Via negativa is the negative path. Neti, neti, neti in Sanskrit means it's not this, it's not that, it's not this. We cannot say what Brahman is. We can only say what Brahman is not. In other words, in Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without attributes, it's best to say nothing. Because every time you give Brahman an attribute or a quality, you detract from Brahman's totality and drag it into partiality to say it is this, but not that. And that is something we are warned against over and over in the Upanishads. And then they call it the Lord of Love. Okay. Giving it a personification and a quality. You just have to learn, if you're going to spend time in Vedanta circles, you have to get comfortable kind of code switching back and forth between the specific language of non-dualism and the kind of playful personification and qualification of phrases like the Lord of Love. Okay, going further. Imperishable is the Lord of love. As from a blazing fire, thousands of sparks leap forth, so millions of beings arise from the Lord of love and return to him. The Lord of love is above name and form. He is present in all and transcends all. He even gets the male pronoun here, he. That doesn't exist in Sanskrit. That's a decision an English translator has to make. Maybe they would be better, huh? He is present in all and transcends all, unborn, without body and without mind. From him comes every body and mind. He is the source of space, air, fire, and water, and the earth that holds us all. Fire is his head, the sun and moon his eyes, the heavens his ears, the scriptures his voice, the air his breath, the universe his heart, and the earth his footrest. The Lord of love is the innermost Atman of all. From him comes the fire that burns in the sun. From the sky lit by the sun and moon comes rain. From rain comes food. From food, the sexual seed. And finally come from the Lord of all, finally come from the Lord of love. From him come the scriptures, chants, and prayers, religious rites, and sacrificed gifts. From him come work, time, and givers of gifts, and all things under the sun and moon. From him come the gods of the natural world, men, beasts, and birds, and food to nourish them. From him come all spiritual disciplines, meditation, truth, faith, and purity. From him come the 7 organs of sense, 7 hot desires and their 7-fold objects, and the 7 levels of consciousness in the cavern of the heart. From him come all the seas and the mountains, the rivers and the plants that support life. As the innermost Atman of all, he dwells within the cavern of the heart. The Lord of love is the one Atman of all. He is detached work, spiritual wisdom, and immortality. Realize the Atman, hidden in the heart, and cut asunder the knot of ignorance here and now. We'll pause there. What a gorgeous, poetic, all-encompassing vision of all of the spiritual paths, all the names and forms in the manifest world as aspects of the formlessness of Brahman Atman. But here's the good news. Not one of our steps leads away from it. You and I have this present within us all the time in our ongoing consciousness, whether we are aware of it or not. And the deepest realization in Vedanta philosophy is that we are self-illumined consciousness. So the spiritual path, the spiritual progress in Vedanta is always the same. It is not about going out there. It is about going in here. It is about stopping long enough and growing quiet enough for our souls to catch up with our bodies, through meditation or any of the other practices we just rattled off, devotion, selfless service, meditation, take your pick, or a combination thereof. And just in the way we walk through the world in our everyday lives, that becomes the most important spiritual practice of all, who we are, how we show up. After we set down our practices and our texts and our devotions. How we show up in the marketplace, in traffic, at work, in difficult conversations with family members. That's the path. And on that path, if we humble ourselves enough, come out of selfishness, we begin to feel arising in the space between us the nameless presence that we are. So join me in part 2 in the next video of the Mundaka Upanishad. I'll see you on the other side.